Aloha, this is Jill, the Barefoot Grandma, coming to you from Kauai, and today is number 5 in my breast cancer, I Beat Breast Cancer series. And today we're going to be talking about support groups and the importance of them. I'm hoping right up front you will consider liking and subscribing to this video or the series, as it really enables me to have these videos. Essentially, it's kind of a thumbs up in the algorithms for YouTube that allows me to have these videos more visible for other women to find when they do their search, and it's not buried at the bottom of the circular file, the digital circular file, if you will. So I hope that you'll consider down below here liking and subscribing, and there will be a myriad of topics that I continue to do these videos on. Today's topic actually is going to be fairly short, and I know I've said that in the past, but I think today I'll actually be keeping this one fairly short. We are going to be talking about support groups and the importance of them for your own mental health and for that of your families. There's a wide range of emotions that come up when you're on this journey, and as supportive as your family may be, whether it's a spouse or a partner, mother, father, sister, brother, best friend, sometimes not everything that we're going through, particularly in the beginning, is maybe not necessarily what you want to share with those that you love, because a lot of it comes about the fear of dying, and we have a little bit of a hard time even having that conversation with ourselves, and to have that conversation or some hysterical feelings or a lot of emotion, or sometimes maybe the families can't deal with that quite so much because they're not ready to lose us, and so they're trying to come to grips with this themselves. So that's why a support group is super important. And the one that I started with was for the newly diagnosed. And even if you don't do any other types of support groups during your journey, I highly, highly recommend, no matter what your cancer type might be, to find something like that. And you can Google cancer support groups in your area, and you certainly can contact your local Cancer Society office, and they'll be able to help direct you. And also the hospital should be able to, oncology departments should be able to help guide you or point you into the right direction. Support groups, there's a wide variety of types. Clearly there's cancer specific type of groups. There's side effect specific type groups. There are, as I had mentioned, the one that I became a part of was for the newly diagnosed. There's for metastatic disease, post-treatment. And I think I've also mentioned even support groups for family members. So definitely, I hope that by the end of this video that you will take a few minutes, if you're on this journey, to look at what your resources are. There's a lot of commonalities in this journey, and in the newly diagnosed group, those were predominantly fear-based. It was about sharing our fears, about asking questions, about trying to wrap our minds around, you go to the really dark place first usually. It's an arresting bit of information, and that's just where we naturally seem to take things is, oh my God, I'm going to die, or what if I die, and all of the questions that come with that. So a newly diagnosed support group is a place to process a lot of that. There's also feelings and emotions that come with our self-esteem and body image, if we're looking at mastectomies, or we've just had one, or other types of surgeries, losing our hair, if that's appropriate for the protocol that you've been given. certainly relationships, as I mentioned, just how to navigate, maybe your husband or wife is, repetitively doing something because they're kind of stuck in this loop of, and it could be a helpful behavior like, asking you how you are every hour, and that may be freaking you out and driving you nuts. But if you kind of process that through a support group, then you can begin to understand and at least maybe given some tools and how to have that conversation with that person and help them walk through their feelings as well. So support groups deal with a lot of different things, and one of the beyond the fears and processing my feelings, one of the things that I got out of this support group was just coming face to face with my own mortality, was realizing that other people do things differently than I do, and that it's okay that they do. I'm a pretty strong personality. I'm, in my career, I've always been in leadership. I believe in team building and building people up, and enabling people to do the best job that they can. And in my mind, that looks a certain way. And certainly there is no difference when I was diagnosed with cancer, that's how I kind of attacked this new challenge, was research and learn and drink in all the information that I can, and then make best choices from that. And then when I got into the support group, I realized not everybody did it the way that I did it or was doing it, and could be vastly different, was intimidated by how I chose to do it. So it was a good lesson for me as I listened to the other women and suppressed questions, because we're not there to grill the other women. We're just there to listen and speak our own truths. So when you're quiet and you're forced to listen and to see the pain and emotion in other people's faces, you are able to set your own stuff aside. And so through that process, there was a young gal that chose not to have chemotherapy because she didn't want to lose her hair. She was terrified of losing her hair. She was okay having a mastectomy, which was interesting, but she had very long, beautiful hair. She was a young woman. She just couldn't do it. Another woman chose a non-traditional treatment style. She looked at things like chemo and radiation as poisons, and felt the best path for her was through a holistic and natural process. And I'm sad to say, both of those women did lose their lives. But cancer is a funny thing. They could have easily lost their life just as much as had they done traditional Western treatment. There's no guarantee there. So likewise, they could have survived and ended up being okay. That they didn't, certainly didn't make me feel good. It did not make me feel like my way was better, because I really had gotten to a place of respect and acceptance that these women chose what they felt was right for them. And you feel a lot of sorrow for their families. But once again, because I chose to do it this way, my prognosis was poor, and I could easily, by the end of it, not survive. 19 years later, I'm still here, but was that chemo? Was that the Native American healing that I had, which I'll talk about in another video? Was it radiation? Was it luck of the draw? It's there's no guarantee how this path ends for any of us. So it is really important that we stay true to what feels right for us, because it's not just about living and dying. It's about quality of life. It's about your belief system. It's about your family's comfort level. So a lot of things go into decisions. And And through the support group, we were forced to look at some of those and become more compassionate and open and accepting women of each other and the choices that we made individually, and look at the collective healing and support that we had to offer each other as a positive thing. Another thing I ran into in this newly diagnosed support group was a little bit of difference in age and how things are processed differently for us. I was 39 when I was diagnosed, and there were women in my newly diagnosed support group that were in their 70s and 80s. And whereas everything that was suggested to me by my physicians, I immediately went home and did all the research I could, and then felt like I made an informed decision. But these women in this generational group, predominantly it seemed like, came from a time that you followed the direction of the doctors that you put your trust in, and they did. They didn't question. They didn't, even if they didn't like the doctor, they didn't let that doctor go. They bore whatever was given to them in a way that maybe generationally was appropriate. And I don't know if there was maybe some patriarchal conditioning based on that in 70s and 80-year-old women at the time. I think of my grandmother and my mother, and they probably would, my mother did, I know. They did what they were told when they went to the doctor. And is that wrong? No, it's not any more wrong than what I was doing. It's what was known to them. It's what made sense to them. It was what was comfortable for them. And in the end, both the two older gals that was in that group survived, at least as far as I know, for a good many years. So, choices, cancer's kind of like walking through a minefield. You turn right, you turn left. It seems like it's a good idea. Maybe it is. Maybe it ends up not being so much. But in the end, the important thing is that we're making our choices, and that choice may be to listen to others. So all that I would say in this is all the bag full of emotions and questions and attitudes and expectations of ourselves and others. A support group is really important. And I guess I would close this segment with not highly enough recommending, and I don't recommend many things in this series, but this I feel fairly comfortable in recommending. If you're new to this journey, please look up and find out what your resources are for support groups. If you're in the middle of the journey, it's not too late. I ended up starting a peer support group for post-treatment gals that, we were kind of in a group that had been put together by that initial newly diagnosed group. Then we all stayed in touch, and we did some activities together. We did some art through some art therapy together. We entered some art shows together. We stayed in touch. And then because we were all fairly close in timing, our treatments kind of came to an end in a similar time frame. And what we realized was your life surrounds literally it seems like every waking moment, at least intellectually, if not physically, you're dealing with cancer in some form or fashion. And then, whether it's treatment decisions or appointments or side effects or, helping your family deal with it, or, trying to work and deal with it. It just seems like it touches every aspect of your life. And then when it all closes up shop, there's this hole, interestingly enough, that gets left. All of a sudden, nobody's paying attention to you anymore. And I don't mean that in a self-centered way, but it's disconcerting to have the troops pull out. And you're now left with picking up the pieces and the expectation that you pick up your life and go on. that can be easier said than done. So I may do a separate video on how to deal with picking up those pieces, and some tips that might make it easier. But looks like I'm at 15 minutes today, and I think that's a good time. So I am going to close for today. Please, once again, like and share and subscribe. This will allow me to keep these videos at the top of the heap in YouTube and be available to people that are interested. I appreciate your support. Please leave me any comments. Some of you have, and I've really appreciated getting to know you a little bit, and I do look forward to your questions and thoughts. And I guess with that, I would say aloha once again, and see you soon.